with Arch. I want to go ahead and invite you all who are joining on your computer to introduce yourselves via the chat so that others might know who you are and who you're with. So go ahead and make use of that chat feature to indicate who you are and who you're with. And we're going to give everybody just another minute to get on here. And then we have lots to talk about. So we're going to jump right in. Into the chat. There's a wide variety of folks here today, and I'm excited to see that. Again, my name is Lee Rochelle, and I'm with Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing. We also have Melinda Taylor here with Acadiana Housing Alliance. Melinda, do you want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Sure. Melinda Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Lafayette Habitat for Humanity, and I guess co-chair with Lee of the Acadiana Housing Alliance. And it's really great to see you all here today. We have a lot going on right now, as Lee said. So our intention today was just to allow everybody an opportunity to give some updates on what's happening from their perspective in the housing arena. So in addition to those on the agenda you received, we're going to have a report at the end of the meeting. Somebody from our Housing Louisiana partners, Andronika Morris, will be joining us around 12:45 for an update there. So again, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
You should have received via email this morning an agenda. It's a pretty just basic rundown, and so we'll try our best to stick with that. Just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. Feel free to use the chat both to introduce yourself, but also to provide any additional resources you might want the group to be aware of. It's a helpful way for everybody to have that. Keep your eye on the chat in case somebody is putting information in there you might want to hear or see, rather. I do have everybody on mute as you entered because we were getting quite a bit of background noise. It's a large group, so I figured that would be the best way to manage that. But I don't want to stifle conversation or questions, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions and to participate in a community conversation. We're going to try to have as much as we can opportunity for people to ask clarifying questions or to identify additional resources. It's truly a time for us to do a little bit of problem solving in addition to getting updates about what's going on. There will be a time for general announcements at the end. And time for other agencies that are involved in homelessness and housing to provide some updates and information. Melinda and I have identified a few agencies to specifically ask for updates, but there are a number of other agencies working in this arena. And so we do want everybody who's here today to have that opportunity to provide an update, how your work is being impacted by COVID, by Laura, and how it is impacting homelessness or housing issues in Acadiana. So that's kind of our goal for today. So we will jump right in. The first one on our agenda to provide a quick update is 232 Help, our 211 agency. And let's see, is Nikki on the call to give us some information about the trends that they're seeing within their calls at 211? Nikki, are you here?
She was here. Nikki, are you on mute?
There we go. Can y'all hear me now?
You are. There you go. Thanks, Nikki.
All right. Two different devices. Sorry, guys. So this was thrown together last minute. Thanks, Lee. So our current call volume ranges anywhere between 250 calls to 150 calls per day. We've been quite busy between COVID and Laura. The calls around homelessness issues, they average about 69 calls. Like in the last 10 days, we've had 69 calls of people who are homeless on the streets that are in need of assistance, but we have nothing to give them. Just due to lack of resources, or just this whole situation is crazy. What else would you like, Lee?
Thanks, Nikki. I think that's good. Are there any, other than shelter for those who are experiencing homelessness, any other gaps in resources that you guys have seen as a trend, or any other information related to needs for housing that you're seeing calls for example, rent assistance or et cetera, that you think is worth mentioning?
Yes. I mean, within the last 10 days, 96 of our calls have been about rental mortgage payment assistance. So that's starting to come up on a rise. Utility service assistance, that's been a big priority, or one of our major calls. So currently, like 150 calls have been about utility assistance. So those two things are continuing to, the numbers keep going up.
Great, thanks so much. As Nikki mentioned, that was kind of a last second request to them to provide us with those trends and that information. So I appreciate you pulling that together this morning for our call today. Certainly, if anybody has any questions, we'll have some time at the end that you could ask some questions specifically about those call trends if they're not answered by somebody else. I think there's somebody, is Derek here from Acadiana Legal Services, to provide some information about the resources that might be available from our legal, from Acadiana Legal Services in terms of legal assistance.
Yeah, I'm here. What specifically do you want to know about that?
What type of information are you guys receiving calls for or being able to assist with? If you guys have information to provide about the CDC moratorium and the legal implications of that, that would be helpful.
Sure. We're definitely getting some calls to help with evictions. And really the only remedy for any of that right now is the CDC order. But the CDC order only covers non-payment evictions. It doesn't offer any help to anyone who is being evicted for any other reason, essentially. So, but we're not really, I'm not seeing anything other than private landlord tenant situations where it seems to always be for non-payment of rent. The CDC declaration is successfully being used, particularly in Lafayette City Court. In fact, I'm pretty sure Lafayette City Court is sending out CDC declarations with the citations to appear. So they definitely seem to be doing their part in getting the word out as well. But we're having mostly issues with justice of the peace courts doing as they always seem to do, which is whatever they want. So we're seeing people get evicted in spite of the CDC moratorium and the tenants presenting their declaration to the landlord and even bringing that declaration, a copy, to court with them. The justices of the peace are tending to not give it any weight at all and still evict them. And of course, the only remedy at that point is to appeal to district court, and people don't have money to file appeals, and we don't have money to pay for their appeals. So there's kind of a gap in being able to provide any service in that sense.
What is the cost associated with appealing with district court? Like, how much is that?
I really don't know. I've never had to look it up because we can't pay it. So I don't I don't really have any cause to know what it is, unfortunately. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I had one yesterday, and it's unfortunate that at this point there's really not much we can do other than say, you've got 24 hours and you got to get over to district court. I mean, that's pretty much where we are on that. We're not seeing really. I'm not seeing any. Of course, I don't know about our other offices across the state, but all the evictions I'm seeing are non-payment. They all seem to be in rural areas, except I've seen some go through Lafayette City Court that are pretty successful, though the judges aren't always incredibly happy with some people who have a little bit of income, whether that's from subsidized retirement or disability, and they're not making any payments at all to a landlord, because part of the CDC declaration is that you're saying that you're having to say that you'll make whatever payments you can, and if you present that to your landlord and you're able to make, even if it's $1 reasonably, of course that's a hard thing to say, we can make a $1 payment, but if you're not doing that, then anyone who makes that declaration is at risk of perjuring themselves. So I'm having to be somewhat careful on who I even give the CDC information to, because if I find out that they have an income and they can make partial payments and they're not willing to, there's some pretty serious implications about making those sorts of declarations in court and not being able to follow through on them. So that's kind of the other side of the CDC declaration. It does require you to make payments that you can. So that could be something that comes up later, or even in court if there is money to make a little bit of payments. One thing I'm concerned about, kind of just myself, and I don't know if anyone else at my office is concerned about this, is even where the CDC declarations are successful in preventing evictions right now, we've only got till the end of the year, and all the money comes due unless there's some other kind of moratorium that gets put in place then, which I guess is what we were saying a few months ago anyway. we were wondering if there was going to be anything to help going forward. So I really have kind of a foreboding sense that this is all just getting pushed till next year. And I don't know what's going to happen then. I guess we can only deal with today.
Yeah, that was really enlightening, Derek. I appreciate your sharing that information. It was a good snapshot of what you're seeing out there. Do you have a sense of the rural areas? Are there any parishes in particular where you're seeing more folks who are actually being evicted? Or is it evenly spread?
It seems to be fairly evenly spread. I think we've gotten the most calls, to be honest, in Lafayette, which most of that's just being taken care of because city court's doing such a good job of sending out information and respecting the declarations. But it's rural areas. I mean, I had one from Acadia Parish recently, and it's just a private landlord. Yeah, it's spread pretty evenly according, to population centers, I would say.
Great, thanks. If you guys start to notice a trend, if you can help keep the group informed on that, that might help us be able to find some additional ways of providing support or resources to those communities. Does anybody else have questions for Derek? Okay, the next on our agenda this morning or this afternoon is Catholic Charities of Acadiana. Kim, are you on?
I am on. I'd asked Michelle if she's on the call to do an update. If not, then I can.
Okay.
There you are.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. For our rental and utility assistance, we have an online application at CatholicCharitiesAcadiana.org. You just go to the red banner at the top and click it. It will take you to the application. Or it can be accessed by texting CCA space help to 797979. In the past month, we've had 179 applications for rental and or utility assistance. We have 118 pending cases, and this means that we're waiting on documentation like proof of income, lease agreements, landlord agreements, and the like. And then we've completed and paid out 61 cases. The total that we spent so far is $94,751.80. The average assistance per client is $1,553.31. And I think it's important to note that in the past month, we have spent $20,604.93 in assistance to clients outside of Lafayette Parish. So that's pretty much my report.
Thanks, wonderful. Do you guys are you able to provide any kind of update regarding sheltering at this time and or trees and tarps through rebuilding?
Sheltering, we're still doing the same thing. We have our clients in the motels, and that will go on for an foreseeable future. And Jody, are you here?
I am.
Okay, hit it, girl.
Okay, so I can give an update on Hurricane Laura response. So we have received 135 requests for response. We've referred 22 of those that were actually in Region 5 to appropriate agencies there. And we have 25 that are still needing initial response services. We're working on those daily. We have 31 that we've done the initial response, so they're complete, but they need further long-term recovery. And we anticipate that those 25 that are still waiting will be added to that. So we're looking at probably 56 clients that we currently know of that will need long-term recovery. We have 57 complete homes. That means we did initial response and these folks are either insured appropriately, we fully repaired them. Some of the roof work we couldn't do with tarps, so we just went ahead and did those repairs. Or they have additional resources, family members that can help them finish recovering. So that's where we stand now. Does anybody have any questions about that?
That's pretty incredible. 57 completed, and Hurricane Laura was a month ago. So it's more than one a day. It's awesome.
So, yeah, and I mean, and like I said, 31 where the initial response part is complete, but they will need additional services. So we're working on 3 today, so that number will increase daily.
Great. Thanks so much. Does anybody have questions? Okay, fantastic. Is somebody here with Faith House?
I'm here.
Hey, Sarah, go ahead.
Hey. Okay, so fortunately, Faith House has been, our shelter has been up and running through COVID, through Hurricane Laura, with few minor adjustments for, being able to keep everybody safe and the facility healthy. But we have been up and running. We've been working hard to keep people sheltered. I know that some domestic violence shelters on the western side of our state experienced some pretty significant damage. So they were down for a while. A few are up now. As far as we go, we've seen some progress in housing survivors out of our shelter, opening up for some more availabilities for survivors experiencing homelessness. We are at a limited capacity though, and having a little bit of trouble for if there's a need for overflow or something like that, like in high lethality cases, putting them in hotels, that's kind of a problem right now because all the hotels are taken up. But yeah, that's about it. Unless Crystal wants to add anything.
No, you did a great job, Sarah.
I have a question. I know early on in the pandemic, there was sort of an increase in the lethality of calls and to some degree the number of calls that you guys were experiencing. Has that leveled back off to pre-COVID levels, or is that remaining high?
That'd be a Crystal question.
Yes, so we are still seeing an increase in the lethality of the calls. We have over this past week started to see a little bit of a leveling off of services. So we're not sure yet if it's a lull or if we're going to kind of begin to get back to pre-COVID levels. But prior to this last week, we have definitely seen a large increase in the volume of calls for services and the lethality of those callers.
Okay, are there any questions for either Crystal or Sarah with Faith House and responses to domestic violence as it impacts housing?
Just a comment that one of the things that both of them pointed out, which is a shortage of available, affordable rental housing, is something that is trending, and especially post Laura has become a real critical issue here because every available unit, affordable motels and Airbnbs and rental units are being either taken up or quickly taken up by people who are looking for housing. So I think we're going to be looking at a bit of a gridlock, trying to get folks rehoused who are in the hotel shelter system. And I'm sure Lee will talk about that in a bit with Arch's report. But that's something that's, I think, really rising to a critical level here. And there's going to continue to be fluctuations with that as the population of folks who are now in New Orleans in the state's sheltering system maybe are ending up moving back closer to home and looking for places over here where they can relocate while they're in need of staying closer to where their house is, which is not habitable yet. And that's always got a really slow kind of curve on getting them back into the area where their home is for long-term recovery. We actually, I believe today, have got a couple of our FEMA vals on the line with us, the voluntary agency liaisons who have been assigned to Region 4 to our area, and they're doing a lot of outreach here and have just really hit the ground recently. So they're going to speak a little bit later about this, but they're going to have some good information for us and be a good resource as we move forward as far as what FEMA is doing in this kind of complex maze of disaster housing recovery that we're now in for both COVID and Hurricane Laura. So just a little interjection there. But back to the agenda now.
Thanks, Melinda. I see Mary with Hospice is here to give us a quick update on their hospice facility.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come bearing some great news for our community. Some of you may be aware, but Hospice of Acadiana has broken ground over the summer and is in the process of early construction on our new inpatient hospice house, which is going to be named Calcutta House. And I'm sorry that this isn't a PowerPoint. I'm just going to kind of hold up a picture for you. I hope you can see it. This is a rendering, and we're thrilled because our architects have embraced our mission of serving the people of Acadiana. As you can see, it'll have a beautiful front porch and Acadian style look to it. And we are hopeful that it may be completed by summer of 2021, which would be phenomenal. In our almost, I guess, 37, 38-year history, we've never had a capital campaign. We do have a capital campaign running right now. It's called Case for Compassion. And just to let you all know, the support of the community, we've already raised 1.5 million out of 2.6 with the pandemic, with the oil field, with everything. So it's a need for the community. And as Acadiana's only nonprofit hospice, you know, we go above and beyond Medicare requirements because we raise funds to be able to do that, and we reinvest into our patients and families. And so we do serve the poor, the indigent, the homeless, and they receive the same level of care as anyone else. Just to give you an idea of what a hospice inpatient unit could do, this is going to be a 12-bed unit, about 8,500 square feet. It is located, if you know where our office building is, near the corner of Johnston and College Street. If you face our building from Johnston, we have the Albertsons shopping center to our left. I guess that's y'all's left. And then there's a small strip mall on the other side of our property. It goes all the way to St. Christopher Street, where Mary Ellen's Tuxedos is, to give you a little landmark. And our foundation has purchased the back half of that property that goes up to a coulee, and we're constructing the Calcutta House right there. So we'll have great management and access of it because it's actually adjacent to the back of our property. We'll be having access built in, etc. This is going to be a state-of-the-art facility. The patient rooms, I think we're going to be around 785 square feet, something like that. The idea is they'll have a hospital bed, but in addition to being like a hospital room, they'll have your recliner, but a pull-out sofa, a small desk, a small refrigerator. Each would have its own individual coffee station, where the idea is we would want families to be with their loved ones during those last, weeks or months, days of their lives, right? And just to give you an idea of what we would use that for, so some of our hospice patients who are receiving treatment in their homes might have health conditions that are just, they would require more than what we could provide in a home setting. So that might be someone that we put into the hospice house. Some of our patients require hospitalization. And so rather than having them be admitted to a hospital, which is not an ideal setting for people, a lot of people would prefer to die in their home or a home-like environment, which the Calcutta House will provide. So we could admit them. Also, we do have some people who are just isolated, and especially when you think about those out in rural communities, or perhaps there may be an elderly spouse that has illnesses or comorbidities that would prevent them from really being able to provide the level of care their loved one needs. And then, of course, we would serve the indigent and the homeless as well, including we're part of a large national program working with veterans, and we certainly would consider the veteran homeless population, which is considerable as well. So just to give you an idea, a couple of people on our staff have visited hospice houses around the country to see some of the things you can do. And it's so beautiful. Out in California, there's a hospice house where they have volunteer singers that come in, and they're called the Threshold Singers. And so they can, if a family so chooses to use that service, they sit at the foot of the bed as the patient is transitioning and basically sing them over the threshold. That's a pretty tender piece. But the idea would be that the Acadian style home makes them feel at home. And, we just want to offer this to our families and their loved ones and the people of Acadiana, because we deserve this kind of care. And so we're looking very forward to our opening. In addition, just since I have you for a second, I'm going to remind you all that our Center for Loss and Transition provides free grief counseling to anyone in our 9-parish area. You do not have to have had a patient with Hospice of Acadiana, nor with any hospice at all. So we offer free individual counseling, free group sessions. We have free yoga. We have a free labyrinth. We do free workshops throughout the year, things like transitions through grief, healing with art, music. I think you name it, we've got it. We also, our counselors can counsel children through grief, and we have a summer camp that we do for kids called Camp Bravehearts. Of course, that had to be very modified this year. In addition to that, you will be hearing shortly, we have been doing for a while now community-based palliative care, which is different than hospice. I'll take an opportunity maybe down the road to talk to you all about that. It's going to be opening widely. We're still just kind of getting a few more things in order, but it's an extra layer of care that we can provide to people well before they're in the hospice stage. So we're very excited about that. You're going to be seeing a lot of changes in healthcare over the next year. And that's, of course, as important as food and shelter and all of that, because it's a critical piece for every single one of us, quite frankly. So anyone with questions, or if you have more interest, the Calcutta House, if you want to take a little closer look, we have a specific website on it called caseforcompassion.com, and it kind of tells you our story. But we look forward to it, and certainly look forward to adding additional services for the people of our area. Thank you.
I have a question, just real quick. Calcutta House, it sounds like an opportunity to do a lot of, or to do more of, depending on what you already do, like education of the next generation of hospice nurses, social workers, therapists. I was wondering if y'all have plans to include like students from UL or SLCC, like opportunities for them to do internship type work at Calcutta House.
That's a really great question. I thank you for asking that. We already do a lot of internships with several departments at UL. We work closely with their School of Nursing. Dr. Oberleitner, the dean, is actually on our board, and they've been coming here for years. So definitely with the nurses, the social workers, with marketers, with child and family studies, with counselors, social workers. We've got all that in place, and we actually have previously met with UL's hospitality department in the hopes that when Calcutta House opens up, we intern some hospitality students in a very different form of hospitality, which would be groundbreaking. So we're excited about that. But I appreciate your suggestion. And if any of y'all know of anyone else that's interested in interning, please put them in touch with me, or call me, or let me know, email, whatever. So thank you for that, Clancy.
Great. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank y'all.
And I did see Ted is on the call from the Lafayette Housing Authority. Ted, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity. For those of you that don't know, Lafayette Housing Authority serves Lafayette, Vermilion, St. Martin, and Iberia parishes. We administer over 2,000 housing choice vouchers, and we have 572 public housing units. We also have some low-income housing tax credit units in our portfolio. So the impacts of COVID on the Housing Authority have been, like many of you folks out there, pretty severe. We've had 9 employees that have contracted the virus. Because of that, we closed our offices for a while. We went to a staggered work staff. Now we're back to 5 days a week, but our offices are still closed. Our doors are closed to the public. We're handling all business via phone, email, US mail, and our Dropbox out in the front of our office. And what we're doing is we're just exercising all of the HUD statutory waivers that are available to us. Most of these, all of these are really temporary policy waivers that will actually burn off. Most of them burn off December 31st of this year, unless HUD gives us guidance. And really these waivers are to help support our current residents and residents that are coming to the Housing Authority. We did receive CARES Act dollars. That includes some additional vouchers. We are working with ARCH. We received 38 additional mainstream vouchers. Those are vouchers to work with disabled individuals. We also presented to the board and redirected 100 housing choice vouchers. We have an MOU with ARCH to help our folks, our homeless community. We know we have a lot of need with the homeless folks. So that's what we're doing with redirecting those 100 vouchers. We're also trying to partner up and team up with the Lake Charles Housing Authority in regards to the hurricane efforts. Ben Taylor is the executive director out there. We've reached out to his organization. Many of his folks are being sheltered temporarily in New Orleans, Baton Rouge. But we're going to work hand in hand. Our PHA plan and our section admin plan allows for us to work with those customers to try to get some of those folks housed as many of you know, had catastrophic damage. With that, we've received about 47 port-ins from different parishes affected by hurricanes and other issues, but we're absorbing those ports, so we'll absorb those 47 port-ins from other housing authorities. We are currently in the process of closing a RAD, rental assistance demonstration, deal with HUD. It's a $12 million rehab with our Simcoe and Moss properties. That's going to be 104 units. We're using the 4% low-income housing tax credits and the CDBG DR funds. Those will be completely remodeled. We're putting in Energy Star appliances, insulation, new roofs, doors, storm doors, central air. Each unit will have washer dryers. We're looking at safety and security for our residents. There'll be a computer room for adults and kids to do homework. So those are some of the things that we're kind of doing on that side. You know, and one of the things that I hope that we can work towards as a community is, I think Melinda mentioned it, and it's on my forefront, is we're really in need of more affordable housing stock. The Louisiana Housing Corporation just released its 2021 qualified allocation plan for the 9% low-income housing tax credits. If anybody is interested in getting onto their site and taking a look at that, or they have questions of me, I am, I guess, now the new chairman of the Community Development Committee for AHA, and I'm kind of spearheading a group of folks that we're really looking at affordable housing, because that's the only way we're going to get some support to our community is by building more affordable housing. The housing stock that we have now is just not sufficient to handle the demands that we're looking at right now. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. And I just want to say thanks to Ted I think we are really fortunate as a community to have a new ED with the Lafayette Housing Authority who has the scope and experience that he has with development, and looking forward to seeing that partnership play out in the community here to produce more affordable housing for folks who need it. So, and look for exciting developments on the Housing Authority property. These units that are being rehabbed are from the 1950s, and all of you are probably familiar with them, the little red brick units that are on Simcoe and Moss Streets, and that's going to have a whole new look. And they'll be rehabbing them in pods. So, people will move out, their section will be rehabbed, they'll come back. This is down the road a ways, but things are going to be moving on this fairly quickly. So very excited to see that. And welcoming Ted to the community. He's been with us now. When did you start, Ted?
March. So I arrived here and then COVID
With
hit,
COVID. So yeah, well, thanks. And anybody have any questions for Ted? I know we did have some questions in the chat, and I think we'll get to those in a minute, but I think we've got some other folks who give updates too, correctly, so we can move on.
Okay, great. Well, Acadiana Housing Alliance and ARCH both cover 8 parishes, so reaching down south to partner in St. Mary Parish, St. Mary Community Action. You have some updates on housing services that you guys are providing? Maybe is Almitra or Mary on the line? You may have to unmute yourself. Mary, I see you. Well, I see her on the call. So Mary, you may just be having trouble unmuting. I'll do my quick update and then we'll circle back, see if you've been able to figure out how to unmute. So ARCH has, in response to COVID, been facilitating the what's called non-congregate sheltering program in the hotels for people who were unsheltered to help mitigate public health concerns related to COVID for those who were unsheltered. And we are no longer allowed to move new individuals into the hotels. Not that there are available hotel rooms to put people into at this point, but we, oh, Mary, you got it. I hear you. I'll stop. Why don't you go ahead and give your update?
Okay, I apologize. I didn't remute myself. I'm sorry. No, we've been extremely busy. We're getting at least 10, 15 calls a day, if not more. A lot of them are still just needing assistance, rental assistance, but we are getting more and more persons who are homeless and needing assistance there. And as you just mentioned, there's not a whole lot of places to put them or help them there. So we're trying to do as best we can under the circumstances. We do have our CSBG, COVID, and regular CSBG. We may be able to assist some under there, but we're doing the best we can under the circumstances.
Thanks. Would you say that there's any particular trends or gaps other than shelter that you guys are seeing? Or are you being able to facilitate enough rent assistance at this point to meet the community need down south?
Well, I don't think we're meeting completely the community needs, but we're still able to help like with the rental assistance. But we're about to move over to rapid rehousing, which is going to be making it a little more difficult for those who are going to need just rental assistance. So, but the good thing about it is I've been able to build a rapport with a lot of the landlords, and they're not quick to evict people. They're working with them a little more, and I've been able to work where the families are able to continue paying whatever they can. And the landlords are willing to, I don't know for how long, but, they are willing to maintain the people in the homes as long as we can continue to open dialogue and to continue working that way. So the landlords, for the most part, have been willing to help keep people in houses, and most of the people are willing to try to pay whatever they can to maintain their homes. So that's a plus there.
Great, thanks, Mary. And with the CDC moratorium, the landlords are not supposed to be able to evict for non-payment if the person had a COVID-related impact to their income and ability to pay, as long as they are paying what they can with what they have. At least those are the details of it that I understand. That Derek.
I'm sorry, I probably need to get a copy of that moratorium because most of the landlords are really not abiding by that. They're just, they're saying, okay, we'll work with you to this point, and then they'll be willing to put these people out if need be. So I may need to look more into that to make sure that they are following it and that we can assist through that as well.
Yeah. Derek, do you guys cover St. Mary Parish, or is that a different office?
I believe we cover St. Mary.
Okay, I'll connect the two of you guys and provide some information to you, Mary, about the CDC moratorium.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions for Mary about St. Mary Parish and the housing or assistance programs available through St. Mary Community Action Agency? Okay, I'll circle back to my quick report. So we do still have people who were unsheltered either before or became unsheltered during COVID. We have 330 households still in hotels. However, we have had some housing programs come online just in the last couple of weeks. Ted already mentioned the new 100 housing choice vouchers that we have to work in partnership with Lafayette Housing Authority. So we're working quickly to get those applications filled out and submitted. There's also some permanent supportive housing units becoming available, as well as a new rapid rehousing program through some CARES Act funding. So we are moving as quickly as we can to identify available units available for rent across the community. And we are hearing a lot of evacuees who are in hotel rooms right now who are running out of money, who need to be connected to some of the disaster assistance programs. So I'm anxious to get to the FEMA vows and let them tell us a little bit more about what services are available there. We'll note that as we are working to rehouse about 330 households across Acadiana, the need for furniture and household items is really huge. So the Arch Share House program is collecting furniture and basic housewares, both for those who are moving out of homelessness into housing, as well as for those who are evacuees and establishing new households in Lafayette. We have, as you've heard from a couple of shelter providers, very limited shelter, emergency shelter in this region. So the numbers of those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness has been rising pretty significantly. We had, just before Hurricane Laura, did a blitz to try to move anybody we could find who was experiencing unsheltered homelessness into the hotels just for a couple of days during the hurricane to make sure they weren't outside during the hurricane. And during that time period, we moved 47 individuals into hotels. All of those exited the hotels at the end of that time period back to the streets. We do have plans in place next week to do a quick survey of all of those unsheltered that we can find in order to kind of get a better handle on the population that's currently experiencing unsheltered homelessness in our area. We know that population has changed somewhat. It doesn't look the same as it did pre-COVID, pre-Laura. And so we want to, we're going to get outreach workers outside looking very intentionally, trying to identify everybody, similar to what we do on an annual basis in January. We're just going to do it in September or October next week so that we can know what resources would be needed to address that particular population, since many of them are new to homelessness, many of them are sleeping in their vehicles. Many are, so it's a different, but we do have some families with children that we know of that are currently in vehicles across our community. So that's all very new for Acadiana and not something we've dealt with previously. So we need to get our head around who is where and what resources would be needed to address that new population of unsheltered individuals in our community. I think that's all I have. I'm going to move quickly. There'll be some time for questions. I do want to give Andronika a chance to talk with us. She's here from Housing Louisiana. And so, Andronika, we just have a couple of minutes. If you can give us a quick update of what's going on with the state and advocacy issues there.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Two quick topics, and because I have to go as well. I appreciate you guys giving me some time on the agenda, and we're so grateful to your support and the work that you all are doing in the Acadiana region. So first up with a bullet, on Monday, we are having a planning session around some work that we have been doing. Some of you might be familiar with the Greater Acadiana Housing Alliance put this report out that we did with our partners at Enterprise, talking about how much rental assistance is going to be needed for renters across the state because of COVID. We still, unfortunately, haven't gotten the assistance that we need. But we are also doing that analysis for homeowners, working with CPEX, NCRC, and Enterprise again. Unfortunately, the numbers are dire. About in first quarter of next year, because of how long foreclosures take, and because of some of the protections that have been established as a result of coronavirus, that we are estimating we're going to need at least $200 million a month to stabilize homeowners after the first quarter of 2021 for the entire state. This is going to be some of the homeowners you guys have worked with in the past, low to moderate income homeowners who have lost their jobs due to COVID, have experienced economic changes, and are going to be at risk of losing their houses if we don't see that kind of intervention for them in early January of next year. Unfortunately, because of the timing, that means that our state legislator, which brings us to the second issue, have been allowed to not act. And number one, blame has to be assigned to our federal legislators who have failed to address this issue. There are no less than 4 bills that would provide the housing assistance necessary for renters and homeowners, and shame on Congress, and specifically Republicans in Congress who have refused to move on these issues. That's the long and the short of it, but that does not mean that the legislators and elected officials in Louisiana can't take responsibility. We've put about $311 million into the Main Street program for small businesses. And unfortunately, we excluded one of the largest segments of small business owners, landlords, which would have been a perfect alignment. And for small landlords, right, the mom and pop landlords, really the people who are the backbone of most of our housing markets, those folks are struggling to pay insurance, pay property taxes, maintain their properties, while they are, now prevented from evicting tenants who they themselves are struggling because they have lost their jobs or they were struggling pre-COVID. This is a nightmare scenario. And so next week, legislators will be going back into a session. They're going to do a second extraordinary session. Housing is on the agenda. And as soon as we get any details, we don't have the details yet, unfortunately, other than the fact that housing and evictions are on the agenda and looking at the funding for Main Street and making some tweaks to the program. That's no guarantee that those things are going to happen, and we're going to need your help and support to make those things happen. How's that for quick?
Well done.
Great.
That was fast.
Thank you. Please keep us updated on that second extraordinary session.
We will.
Great. Okay. And I know we do have a couple of our FEMA vals here. Either Liana or Anna, do you guys want to give a quick update on the process? Oh, in the chat. Yeah, in the chat. They have a meeting starting now. But I mean, the long and the short of it, we actually had a meeting with them this morning, Jody and Tony Crater and I, at Black Cafe, and talked a little bit about what's going on. And right now, the housing program for individuals who are displaced by Laura from Region 5, the disaster declared parishes, is primarily, it is solely actually administered through the state's program, which is driving people to Alexandria to
do intake at the mega shelter there, where they're not being sheltered unless it's maybe possibly overnight, but from thence they're being sent to one of the hotels, primarily in the New Orleans area now. The state has contracted with hotels in New Orleans and Shreveport, and I think one or two in Baton Rouge, to provide temporary housing for people who are displaced by Hurricane Laura from the disaster declared parishes. So we're not doing congregate sheltering this round because of COVID. So the program is a non-congregate sheltering program, and the Red Cross has pretty much taken over administration of those hotels. And that is the answer for people from Region 5 right now who are running out of resources to stay in a hotel or someplace on their own, and who need help with housing and can't go back to their former housing because it's still uninhabitable. The answer for them is basically to go through the intake in Alexandria at the mega shelter and be assigned to a hotel room. And the state DCFS has said that program is going to be up and running at least through the beginning of November, as a stopgap for people who were displaced by Laura. And FEMA is working on, there's always a kind of a transition period, or it looks different with every disaster. And in this one, the state is very much still holding on to the sheltering option that they have. But at some point, assistance will be activated potentially for people who in the long term are going to be recovering and not able to occupy their either home or rental property for a period of time. And some of that will be through FEMA, and there are conversations going on around that, but nothing definitive as to what that's going to look like at this time. So the advice to give to people who are displaced by Laura is we need you to go, or we need to help people get there if necessary to the mega shelter in Alexandria to get into that program if you're a person displaced by Laura. And that's only for Beauregard or parts of Beauregard, Cameron, and Calcasieu parishes really right now, and on a case-by-case basis for the other disaster declared parishes. So that's kind of the short story there.
Great. Thanks for pitch hitting, Melinda. I appreciate that. Okay, well, we've packed a lot into a relatively short period of time. I do want to provide some time for those who might have additional questions that you didn't get answered through all these updates.
I would just say, do take a look at the chat. There's a couple of requests in there. One of them from Tina. I don't know whether she's still on the call, Tina Shelvin Bingham, but she's working with an organization that's attempting to do outreach for voter registration, and they're looking for some information to do canvassing at some of the properties that provide affordable housing here. So refer to the question in the chat, and Tina's contact information is there if you can assist or provide any information.
Great. Any other questions or community announcements?
I do see Craig on the call with Smile. I don't know, Craig, if you've got any quick updates for us on what's going on with y'all. No. So they also are providing rental and I believe utility. Oh, Craig, go ahead. We can't hear you. Yeah, you show up as unmuted on the screen, so it may be your computer, if you're on a laptop or your phone, is muted.
No, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
And know they had an opportunity to share some of the things they were going to be doing a couple of months ago, and I think it's relatively the same: rent and utility assistance, and some additional types of financial assistance when people call. And so certainly anybody who's interested in that type of assistance in the Lafayette, St. Martin, or Iberia area might want to get in touch with Smile. Craig, hopefully I pitch hit it for you. Okay.
Yeah, in the chat, he said you nailed it. It's correct.
Okay.
So.
Okay, great. Any other questions or community announcements at this time? This, thanks to AOC Community Media, this whole meeting has been recorded, and there was a link in the email that you received this morning to access the video recording. So if you want to go back and hear something again or double check some resource, certainly I would direct you to that link. You can also share it with others if there's somebody who's not on the call who might benefit from this information. But we are very grateful for all who have participated today. And if there are no further questions or announcements, then we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.